We are live.
Money.
Let's go. The devil can't stop us. So, guys, welcome back to Marked. With me, I have a friend. We haven't known each other for too long. Like, let's be real. But over that short period of time, bro, like, honestly, I really felt like a connection. And I think it's because you're a natural born leader. Like, honestly. And not only that, but you're very particular about how you carry yourself and whether you know it or not. But for me, that type of leadership personality trait attracts me to people. And it's like you're very low key. You don't try to be something you're not. You're just you. And you try to be authentic. You try to be raw. And I want to even think using the word try, I think it just happens. You just emanate that. It just comes out of your pores, bro. You know?
I appreciate it. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you live, area.
Yeah.
What's your background? What
Totally.
makes you
Well,
you?
thanks for having me on. I'm pumped to be on here and talk today. My name is Chase Masdorf. I am currently living in Bradenton, Florida, born and raised here. 23. I'm married. So we got married. I married my wife, Sarah, 9 months ago. So we're fresh meat in the marriage scene, and it's been awesome. We're having the time of our lives. I love entrepreneurship. I love the local church. I love leadership, and I love people. So I'm sure we'll dive into all those little aspects with certain questions, but that's the short and sweet. I played basketball in college. That's one thing I know that we're going to talk about. So I love sports, basketball specifically, but love being outside and all those good things.
Let's go. Yeah, dude, you got a pretty like beefy background. I would like to say. But since you touched on basketball, what team for the people who don't know?
Yeah, so I played for Auburn University from technically it was a 2018-2019 season, and then I graduated this past May. So I graduated in 2022.
Awesome.
So that was it, man.
And you enjoyed it, I'm guessing?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, it was a grind by all means, and I was also doing engineering in school, and I was also involved in church, and so it was just I learned a lot about managing my time in college. Let's put it that way. And I wouldn't change anything, but yeah, I wouldn't change anything. But yeah, basketball was a blast. I had a lot of great experiences. My freshman year, we went to the Final Four, and so it was just something that I would have never dreamed of being a part of, but it happened.
That's awesome. So my first question to you is, how did your time as a college basketball player shape your perspectives on discipline and hard work? Because that's something that a lot of people struggle with, and I myself sometimes struggle with it. And what would you tell the peoples?
Yeah, so discipline and hard work are definitely two things that I think our generation specifically like to avoid, I would say. Or at least it's getting easier to avoid that. We're getting so many things. I love automation, like with engineering and stuff. I love making things work for me. So I'm not saying I'm not necessarily saying they're bad things, but it just puts us in a position where it's very easy to kind of put the hard stuff to the side. And I mean, the challenge is honestly really for parents. It's like, how do you teach your kids to do the hard things and to build the discipline so that even as things get easier, more problems are going to come out of the easy things. And so, I'll teaching them how to navigate those. But athletics specifically, I mean, it's that cliche saying I would say growing up that always rung in the back of my head of like, if you're not getting better, someone else is. And I wanted to compete at a really high level. And so always having that in the back of my mind, thinking of a guy that's in Chicago where basketball is, everything they do, eat, sleep, breathe it. if I wasn't playing out in the driveway or going to workouts or going to play pickup, that other kids were, and I knew that that was going to hurt me in the long run. So that was just something I had like an external motivation, I guess, or really it was an external phrase that was said to me, but it became something that I held onto where, I was always trying to at least be thinking about or improving in some way. And I think that paid dividends. And then getting to, that kind of got me to college. And then getting to college, it's like getting there is, half the battle, and staying there is the other half. It's
Bro.
like, I mean, dudes in college can like really play ball, and
Yeah.
showing that especially I was a walk-on, so it wasn't like I was playing all the time and all this stuff. So it's like constantly trying to have to show that you belong there and that you can contribute, in whatever way that is. That gave me a lot of discipline of, they're not going to spoon feed me. They're not going to hand it to me. And so making sure that I had all my ducks in a row, kind of kept me there and allowed me to, experience the things that I did.
What you're talking about right now kind of reminds me of, for some reason, the Creed movies, the first and second
Mm-hmm.
one. It's like in the first one, he's hungry. He's doing all that, hard work, putting it in with Rocky and stuff. And, in the second one, I don't know if anybody, spoiler alert, by the way. uh, in the second one, he's just kind of like, oh man, like getting comfortable, he's a champ and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, then this other guy comes in who's more hungry than him, who's kind of been where he was at in the first one, and he just takes a blow at this man. And
Yeah.
I think his mentors, like, pretty much in the movie just kind of said, well, like when he asked, like, why is this happening to me? Like, why am I taking all these L's? And he's like, well, have you seen how hungry he is? Like the hard work
Yeah.
he's putting in, that discipline. And it's like, get back to that hard work,
Mm-hmm.
that discipline. Um, and since
Yeah.
we're on that kind of topic of like mentorship, that's a good follow into the next question I had for you, which is, what role has mentorship played in your personal and professional growth, and how have you sought out mentors throughout your life? Because that's something
Yeah.
hard to find. Like me personally, bro, I'm still like there's been people in my life, but then distance or something is like lost connection. It's
Mhm.
like finding that person where you can break it down.
Totally. Yeah, I think I actually heard a great take on this recently, and I think I agree with it. I need to chew on it some more, but it was on the topic of mentorship versus discipleship. And what they pointed out that was really interesting is if you want a mentor, you approach them and ask them to be your mentor. But then if you think of discipleship, it was Jesus chose his 12 disciples. And so when I kind of reflected on my life up to that point, I've never asked someone to be my mentor. I wouldn't tell anyone that I have a mentor. But what I would say is I have some people that have taken me under the wing and almost discipled me,
Mm.
where they saw something in me that someone might have not seen. I can talk about this for basketball, for entrepreneurship, for church stuff. I mean, we can in many different areas. Um, but what I think has happened in my life is I haven't actually sought out mentors, but rather aided to me and almost have been a big brother or something of that sort.
Chase,
And they've been a,
we had
yeah,
a short little pause, like it kind of disconnected. If you can go back like
uh,
three sentences before,
yeah,
it was a short pause.
no, good. Basically, I've just found in my life that I've never asked for a mentor. I don't have a mentor, but I've had guys that have almost chosen me to disciple me and be a big brother to me. And whether that's a pastor, if he has a pastoral role in my life, or that's a coach, or that's someone that has built a business, or, whatever that might be, it's guys that I just stay in touch with and update them on what's going on. And then they just give simple feedback. And it's not like we talk every day. It's not like, we're getting lunch and coffee once a week. It's like we check in once a month and things are great. They give me stuff. I tell them what's going on. And I think that's kind of what's happened in my life is um, it's more been discipleship is what's kind of happened. And so I don't have a formula for how that happens, but I think the Lord works in ways where He puts the right people in your life. And then I think if we take that 30,000 foot view, because I never looked at these people as like me being their disciple, but once I heard this phrase, I was like, man, it kind of just clicked. Where as I reflected on the people that have impacted me, it's like, man, they've kind of discipled me for the past however many years, and I'm still meeting more people today that kind of pursue that role, and you go into different seasons, and people kind of exit that role. Um, but that's kind of what I found for my life is I've never sought anyone out or um, asked them per se. There's definitely people that I'll approach. I just spoke at my high school the other day, and I was talking to one of the seniors, and he had came up to me after I spoke, and I was just honoring him for coming up and saying, introducing himself and whatever. We're actually getting coffee next week, but I honored him because he came up and kind of made that move of introducing himself. And I found that that was a miss in college where we would have people come and speak at our classes. Like I remember this one class, it was biomechanics, and we had this guy come in and talk about all the things that he's done in that space. He has like 100 something patents. Like the dude's done a bunch. And there was like two people that went up to him after class. And I'm all about connecting with people. And so like I approached him and we talked and we connected on LinkedIn. And we just kind of went through that process. He doesn't play a role in my life at all, but I think just kind of touching on, you still have a role to play in connecting with people. But I think the longevity of that relationship will come naturally. And I don't think the issue needs to be forced necessarily.
Yeah. You know, me personally, I wish the world, and I wanted to initially say America, but I think the world needs more fathers. And what I mean by that
Mhm.
is I think mentorship and fatherhood kind of tie hand in hand in a way. And I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, it also ties into women, being mentors to
Yeah.
other women. Um, but like what I mean by that is like America used to have, and the world used to have more of a apprenticeship culture, right?
Hmm.
And like if you were trying to become a surgeon or a doctor or something, you'd kind of go under somebody and they would bring on or bring out even all that knowledge and gifts and talents you have within you and onto you. And so uh, I think we're kind of drifting away from that as global society. And I think it's doing more harm than good. And I wish that's like my prayer that more people kind of step up and realize that we need more mentors. We need more of that
Hmm.
fatherhood type of attitude. And I think it was Pastor Murphy, who did like a good sermon on like fatherhood and apprenticeship and all that.
Hmm.
And I really took from that, and I was like, man, this is what
Yeah.
this is what we need.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, and shout out to our pastors, man. Shout out to our pastors. Awesome men who like from a
Yeah.
distance or
Absolutely.
through proxy kind of like I think mentor everybody.
Yeah. No. Totally. Absolutely.
So going on, we all in our life have our up and down moments, right? Life is not
Hmm.
just an upward climb. It's more like a roller
Yeah.
coaster, right? And this kind of leads to my third question to you, which is, what was the most challenging moment in your life, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah. It's a great question. Um, I had just. I'm not gonna. This isn't my answer, but just one that people will probably be surprised isn't. Is I tore my ACL between freshman and sophomore year of college, and so that was tough. But I actually learned a lot from that of just like life isn't all about basketball. I learned more about like purpose in that season. So I wouldn't say that was the hardest. Really the hardest was when I made the team my freshman year. You go through a bunch of like medical tests, and in that process, um, I can make this a very long story, but I'm gonna make it short. Where in that process, I basically found out that I had a tiny hole in my heart murmur, and all this stuff. Which hindsight 2020 isn't a big deal, My wife's a nurse, and she has assured me many times that those are very common and it's not a big deal. But it put me through anxiety. I've never had it before. I mean, I thought anxiety was something that was kind of fake or made up, or people were just like exaggerating. Um, and dude, I went through a season of it was a long time where, I mean, I wasn't going to sleep until my body was just fully exhausted and couldn't stay up any longer. I would call my parents at 3 or 4 in the morning from college, telling them I couldn't sleep and that I was anxious. And because basically the way that my mind was playing tricks on me there was they told me with my heart situation, and I hate all medical stuff. So you have to know that about me. I just hate everything. I hate medical stuff. I can like talk about it and stuff, but
Right.
I don't like going to the doctor. I don't even like going to the dentist. It's like I don't like doing any of that stuff. Um, and what they told me was, if like with this condition, if I ever have shortness of breath, that I need to like go do something about that,
Mm.
go to a doctor or go to the hospital. And I would lay down at night thinking about that. And then kind of in the way that my head was positioned, my nose would get stuffed. And I'm in a college dorm and all this stuff. And my mind would start playing tricks that I was having shortness of breath,
Wow.
and it would freak me out. And I just went through a really tough season of navigating that. But that's actually how I got involved into the local church. I'd grown up going to church my whole life. I've gone to Bayside since 2006 when they were in elementary school. But I never did a small group. I never went to, youth camp. I never did any of the extra stuff. It was strictly Sundays. And I go through this season in college, and I luckily had I wouldn't call it luck, but there was a teammate that was on Auburn who invited me to his freedom group at our church in Alabama. And for those that don't know, freedom group is basically just an in-depth small group where you kind of dig up some roots that need to be dug up in your life and some traumas and things like that. And it was the first small group I ever went in, and it totally changed my life, where I finally got around biblical community consistently. I got more involved with serving in the local church. And then I eventually from that found my calling and my purpose. And I learned a lot from that. And there's still times where anxiety will kind of hit me. But dude, it's been from that alone, I've probably, like, from a stronghold that the enemy's trying to put on my life, I've probably gotten further than I ever would have if that hadn't happened.
And bro, I want to say something, what you said, like follow up on it, because that is so true. Is like, we go through things in life, right? We'll go and get, so to say, equipped with the tools to navigate it. But that doesn't mean the storm's not going to come anymore. I recently heard this thing by the VU pastor, Rich.
Rich Wilkerson.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was talking about how, like, the guy who built his house on rock and on sand. And it's like, he still, even though he built his house on rock, there was still a storm. So meaning you'll go through life, be doing the right things, the right, methodologies and all that stuff. Doesn't mean a storm is not going to still come in your life, or, you're going to have encounters where it's like, you said, like, you still sometimes have that. But now you're more equipped, right, with how to handle that. And I think that's something that very often, like, in church culture gets kind of confusing for people, because they're like, okay, one time and that's it. Like,
Yeah.
and it's like, if it does come back, I think a lot of people fall away from the faith because they're like, well, I guess it's fake now because it came back. No, that's not what it is. It's like the Bible, if you read it fully, not just the verse, you'll realize that it says, like, you'll go through all these things. There's trials and tribulations, and like the testing of your faith, like, brings this perseverance in you. It builds that up into you. And anyways, that was just something I wanted to add on to your thing because it was so good and, like, tied in.
Right. It's very true. It's so true. And I got to a point where talking about the equip side is now I have a list of verses that I can rattle off whenever that
Come on.
hits, or I have stuff where it's like I know exactly how to address it when it happens. And so it's totally the trials are going to come, but it's like, are you prepared for it? And I think I went through a season where I was learning how to prepare for it, you know.
That's good.
So
Thank you for being raw, bro. Honestly, I love having these combos with friends, and um, they're really get juicy, and it's like, ooh, I want more of
yeah,
that.
yeah.
People just open up and like, because it's easy to kind of put up like this. I'm strong. I'm a man, but like, let's be real. Sometimes as men, we're even more weak and fragile than the women. You know, like
Yeah,
that society kind of thinks like it's supposed to be vice versa or whatever not. But like, we go through our things, and it's okay. And
yeah,
yeah, that's just
yeah, totally. I agree, man.
let's keep the ball rolling. Um, so my fourth question to you is, how did your background in basketball influence your approach to teamwork and leadership in your professional life? Because as you mentioned, you are an engineer. I don't remember if you actually mentioned your company. You want to shout that out?
Uh, yeah, I'll get into it with the question. But so basically, how did repeat it again?
So, how did your background in basketball influence your approach to teamwork and leadership in your
Yeah,
professional life?
totally. So basketball specifically, man, it helped in ways that where I realized with basketball, there's such a people that were on these four different teams I played on in college, and then the handful of teams I played on growing up. What you learn in those settings is people grow up in such different lifestyles, contexts, parenting situations, schooling situations, financial situations, whatever it is. Um, and so I think what I realized in that way with teamwork and kind of getting on the same side of the table with those guys and finding a common ground is really one, I think joy is attractive no matter where you come from. I think at everyone's core, they're attracted to joy. And so I've always had a demeanor in every locker room, on every team. Yes, I'm trying to lead. Yes, I'm trying to get things done. But in every situation, especially when we're off the court, on the court too, I was very encouraging in that way. But off the court, it was like I was never trying to be a downer in the locker room. I always wanted to be someone that had high energy, that was going to, if you came to me, I would keep it real with you, but I'm also going to make you feel good, not as in um, just blowing smoke, but
Yeah.
like you're going to feel good because I'm going to tell you the truth and then we're going to laugh about it. It's like that's kind of the approach that I learned from sports is like, and I think one of the best compliments I ever got, it was at my rehearsal dinner from when Sarah and I got married. And one of the former walk-ons who played with me, he had mentioned how the scholarship guys and the walk-ons for the first, I think he was there 2 years before me, 2 years that he was there, maybe even three. Yeah, because my freshman year this didn't really happen. They didn't really hang out. But what he had mentioned was, because he was 2 years older than me, he was the one that invited me to a small group. When he would come back he had graduated, when he would come back and just come say what's up and hang out, he walked into my apartment one time and the whole team was in my apartment. I mean, every single person. And he had just complimented me on how that's part of how I'm gifted in gathering people and getting people on the same side of the table and sitting in a circle. Like that's kind of where I like to take things. So I think basketball taught me from that perspective of just finding that 1% of common ground, investing into it, always having joy in every circumstance. And, there's times where I'll be upset, things are going to happen, like we already talked about.
Yeah.
But basketball specifically has taught me that joy, a good attitude, finding common ground can really help in that teamwork arena. And then kind of mentioning the business stuff that you brought up. So I have two companies. One I co-founded. So I'll talk about that one mainly. But that one is where we basically created a hands-free latch for the restroom stall door. Motion sensor, wave your hand, the door locks, wave your hand, the door unlocks. You can look it up if you want. It's called Smart Stall. But I'm a co-founder in that. And so I've learned a lot about that kind of teamwork also, where it's very flat level leadership where there's not one above the other and all this stuff, and just navigating very, like going to investors and raising money, going through pitch competitions, now negotiating deals, like all of this stuff kind of working together in that way. And I think I've found that one, it's good to lean on and trust your teammates. The guy that I co-founded the company, his name's Win. He's one of the most prepared people I know. Very methodical, or he thinks a lot about every decision that we make. And I'm more of like, think fast, act fast, like let's go. And so I think I've found that there's beauty in almost opposites. We're very similar, and we're both engineers and all this stuff, but in our thought processes, we're almost so opposite that the middle ground we meet it in tends to be really great for whatever we're navigating. And so I think that's the biggest thing is like when you're building a team, is like you might get put on a team, and then that's where, figuring out how to blend and add value to that team is one thing. But when you're building a team, how can you find people around you that have the same core values? And that's a whole other thing, but have the same core values, but also your talents and gifts and mindset will complement theirs, and will bring tension sometimes, because I think in the tension and in those tough combos where you're trying to figure out what the move is going to be for the company, you actually get something really cool because you found the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a packed answer, but
and I mean, bro, when there's that resistance, just like when you're working out, you grow the muscles, you grow that company muscle. So I totally get what you're saying with that, bro. This is going to be a kind of like pretty open-ended question. The next one, which is, what is your why? Why do you do the things you do? What motivates you basically to keep on going in the situations where, there is an obstacle or a setback?
Mm-hmm.
So what is that why?
Yeah. But you can take this so many different ways. I think at its core is my faith. I think I was put on this earth on purpose, for a purpose, which is the most cliche, common saying in Christianity, but it's so true. I've been honestly really meditating on this recently, where like the simplest statements are the most impactful. Like, work hard. If you sit there and think about work hard long enough, your mind is going to be blown, because it's the core value of everyone's success story. It's like, if you pursue and strive and challenge yourself, all kind of encompassed in the phrase work hard, a lot of good things are probably going to happen. But for me, that goes hand in hand with why I was put here. And I think I was put here to lead. And I think I was put here to help the church. One of my other company is like kind of a tech company for church. And I think that a big thing that we've seen in the past few years with church attendance and things like that is that step of getting people connected, where they have, they go, we finally get them to a service, and we're so excited. And they hear a great message and they give their life to Christ. But we, as the local church, the Big C church, we fail at getting them in the door and staying there and getting into a small group, because life change happens in the context of relationships. Like, it doesn't happen on a Sunday. It happens when we can have these conversations around a meal or in a living room or wherever that is. And that's where you get the deeper more intentional conversation where you're not attending a church of 10,000, but you're attending a group of 10.
Yeah.
And there's a whole thing about clique culture in churches where people are so against having cliques. Like, oh, we all need to be friends with everybody and all this stuff. Jesus had a clique. He had 12 disciples. He had 12 dudes that he rolled with. And so, yes, I don't think we should have a negative interaction with any other group that word may not necessarily be in, but I think you need to have a group and call it a clique, call it whatever you want to call it. But I think at the end of the day, it's all the same thing where you need to have a solid foundation of people around you to really do this thing called life with.
Yeah.
And so my why is the purpose behind everything that I'm doing. It's faith, it's advancing the kingdom, it's trying to help the local church with my engineering mind and leadership stuff that I just love. Like it's what I'm attracted to. I'm attracted to problem solving. So I see that people aren't staying plugged in to the local church. Okay, why is that? Let's go to the drawing board. Let's figure out how we can make that better, and so on and so on. So I think my why is I love to make things better. And when I can make the local church better, I think that really fires me up. And that also oozes into everything outside of the church, because the church isn't the building, it's the people.
Right.
So if I'm trying to make the local church better, well, then I'm also challenging myself outside of the four walls to better emulate, represent, be an ambassador for the people that I'm representing and ultimately the faith that I'm representing. So I think that kind of seeps into every decision and every thought. I mean, it goes all the way from literally attending church and helping the church all the way to dating and into business. Like for our business that I was talking about, the bathroom one, all of our investors are believers. We vetted them out. Like we didn't just allow dudes to give us money just because we needed money. We legitimately and genuinely knew who they were. Are they a good father? Are they a good husband? Do they have a successful business? And there's this whole thing too we could dive into, like success versus significance. Like the goal isn't make $1 billion, it's rather to impact. And so there's a whole thing there, but we vetted them out. But that comes from our purpose of, okay, because whatever fruits that we get from this idea that the Lord has given us, we want that to ultimately be turned over to the kingdom to build whatever it is that we can. And so we wanted people that would have the same vision, because that would go into every decision that we make. So when we send out our investor update, ask them for feedback and what they would do in this situation, we all have the same lens. We're seeing everything through the same, set of glasses. So I would ultimately say it's faith at its simplest form, but it's the purpose behind why I think I was put here. And that would be my why.
That's awesome, bro. Such a beautiful response, honestly.
Thanks.
And I think we're going to wrap it up with this last question. And this is more kind of like, if you had the opportunity, right, to mentor people who are listening to this in a way for a short period of time, what advice do you have for people who may be struggling to find their own passion or purpose in life, their own why?
That's a good question. Man, I think it's totally situation to situation on what that could look like. But I think it comes down to the gospel, where I'm sure a lot of people here are listening and they have some sort of faith. But I think if you are pursuing the things that are not of this world, but rather of an eternal mindset, I think you'll find out a lot of things about yourself and how you were designed. And like, you're really good with cameras, and you're really good with audio and with editing and with communicating and stuff. And you've kind of started to find your niche of like, maybe podcasting isn't forever for you, but in this season it is. And you're learning a lot about how you were crafted to ultimately figure out, okay, this is the purpose here. So I would encourage whoever it is, get involved in the local church, because not only will you find a lot of people around you that want to help you find what that purpose is, and the ultimate purpose, just to kind of let the rabbit out of the bag is to glorify the Lord. Like that's just what it is. But how are you going to do that? I think is kind of the deeper question of, what does that look like for me? Getting involved in the local church will help you do that because you're going to find people that will push you in that direction where their whole goal is, let's build the kingdom, but also good leaders in your life and at these churches that you would get involved in, they'll be looking and noticing and watching and seeing what you're good at. And they'll probably call you out eventually and say, hey, bro, did you know you're really good at this? Did you know that you're really good at putting a smile on someone's face? Did you know that, and they'll speak that stuff to you in a healthy relationship. I'm not saying this, that, there's a bunch of situations where people have said, like I had really unhealthy leaders and things like that. So that's something you need to vet. But
So
the health, yeah.
we had, just to quickly intervene into that, we had a whole podcast episode right before this on church hurt with a friend who's a church leader. And ultimately, at the end of the day, guys, if church hurt has kept you from going back to church and finding that, there's plenty of churches out there. Find one.
Yeah.
Find one.
Churches are like restaurants. Have you heard this? Like every restaurant has its own style, it has its own taste. It's like, find what church is for you. And I also don't encourage church hopping now. So I think you need to find one and get planted and vet that situation. But yeah, the church hurt. I have so many thoughts on church hurt. There's just like a whole dynamic there. But what I would say is get involved in the local church and start serving. And I think, because also too, in the local church, there's so many ways to serve where you'll find, like, let's say you really like greeting. You like holding the door and opening it for people. You're probably really good at serving. Like that's just your mindset is always about others and not about you. And then you're trying to now flip that into, okay, I like this one-on-one interaction. I like seeing someone else's reaction from what I do. So you might need to navigate your life or what you're doing into a way where you have more one-on-one interaction, whereas someone else might get involved with production. And then they say, okay, I don't really, it's not that I don't care for the one-on-one interaction. You still need to be in a group in that way. But like for what I want to do with my life and make an impact and be living on purpose, I think you'll find out a lot that you're like, okay, I like being behind the scenes. I want to be the number two to whatever's going on and almost be that guy's ladder of like, okay, I talked to this one dude one time and it was the best conversation that I probably had this whole year that I'm talking about. He was telling me that his life's purpose is to be someone's stepping stool. He's like, I'll get stepped on, I'll get walked on, I don't care what it is. But if I can leave that season saying I helped him get to where he needed to be, that's a success. Wow. And I was like, wow, one, profound statement, but two, he found it that way, So I'd say get involved in the local church, serve, get the right people around you. And I'd say it'll all come to fruition when it needs to. So I didn't find mine until I was 19, which is like, I would argue probably still pretty young, but I mean, Charlie Gamble just preached. She found out she was going to be a preacher or communicator when she was 14. It's like some people are they figure it out earlier than others. But I think if you're pursuing the things that you need to be pursuing and not allowing the world to influence your decisions, that it'll all work out the way that it needs to.
That's awesome, bro. Well, guys, that was Chase. See you next time.